The siren echoed through the stone walls like thunder. Inside Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, every door slammed shut at once. Metal against metal. Loud. Sharp. Final. Officer Daniel Brooks ran down the long corridor, his boots hitting the floor fast, his radio crackling with urgent voices. Lockdown. Full lockdown. Inmate missing from count. Repeat, missing inmate. Daniel stopped for just 1 second. Missing. That word almost never came up inside one of America's oldest and most controlled federal prisons. He turned the corner and saw it. A cell door wide open. Inside. Empty. The bed was made. Too neat. Too perfect. Like someone wanted it to look normal. But it wasn't. Because the man assigned to that cell, Ethan Cole, was gone. Daniel stepped closer, heart beating faster. How long? He asked. Another officer answered. Count just finished. He should be here. Daniel looked around. The hallway felt tighter now. Quieter. Dangerous. Because in a prison built on routine, something breaking that routine meant something serious had already happened. Then came the second call on the radio. Possible movement in the lower service tunnels. Daniel froze. Service tunnels. Those were not for inmates. Those were old. Rarely used. Locked. Secured. Or at least, they were supposed to be. Daniel grabbed his radio. Seal every exit. Nobody moves. He turned toward the stairwell. Because if an inmate had reached the tunnels, then this was no longer just a missing person. This was something much bigger. And just before he reached the first step down, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then part of the prison went dark. 3 days earlier, Leavenworth looked as solid as it always had. Built with heavy stone walls and long corridors, the prison stood strong in Leavenworth, holding more than just inmates. It held history. Decades of it. Officer Daniel Brooks had worked there long enough to respect that history, but also long enough to know that old buildings sometimes held old problems. His shift began early that morning. He walked through the main corridor, passing rows of cells and nodding to other officers. Everything looked normal. Count was correct. No reports of trouble. Just another day. But inside prisons, problems didn't always start loud. Sometimes they started small. And quiet. During breakfast, Daniel noticed Ethan Cole sitting alone at a table. Ethan was not new. He had been there for over a year. Quiet. Kept to himself. No major incidents. No trouble reports. That made him easy to overlook. But Daniel had learned something over time. Quiet didn't always mean safe. It often meant watching. He walked past and heard Ethan say softly to another inmate, "They don't check everything." The other inmate frowned. "What do you mean?" Ethan shook his head. "Nothing." Daniel slowed his steps, but kept moving. Because conversations like that were common. And hard to prove. Later that morning, maintenance reported a minor issue. A light flicker in one hallway. Old wiring. Nothing serious. Daniel signed the report. But made a note. Because even small issues mattered in old buildings. At noon, inmates moved to work assignments. Some to the kitchen. Some to cleaning. Some to maintenance. Ethan Cole was assigned to a cleaning crew that worked near a restricted hallway. Not inside it. Just near it. Still, Daniel noticed. Because that hallway led toward older parts of the prison. Parts not used often anymore. Parts that still existed. Even if most people forgot about them. That afternoon, Daniel checked the same hallway. Everything looked normal. Locked doors. No movement. No sound. But as he turned to leave, he thought he heard something. A faint noise. Like metal tapping. He stopped. Listened. Nothing. Just silence. He shook his head and walked away. But something about it stayed in his mind. That evening, during count, everything checked out. All inmates accounted for. All cells secured. Nothing out of place. Except one small thing. Ethan Cole's bed. It looked too perfect. Daniel paused at the door. You make your bed like that every day? He asked. Ethan looked up. Gives me something to do. Daniel nodded slowly, then moved on. But later, he wrote it down. Because details mattered. The next morning began quietly again. Breakfast. Movement. Routine. But small changes kept appearing. One officer reported a door that didn't close right away. Another mentioned a brief radio static. And once again, the lights flickered. Longer this time. Daniel met with another officer, Mark Ellis. You notice it? Daniel asked. Mark nodded. Feels off. Like what? Like something's building. Daniel agreed. But without proof, there was nothing to act on. That afternoon, Ethan Cole requested extra cleaning supplies. Spill in my area, he said. Daniel approved it. Cleaning requests were normal. But later, Daniel checked the supply log. Ethan had requested supplies twice in 2 days. That was less normal. Still, nothing illegal. Nothing clear. That night, Daniel walked the corridor again. Everything looked calm. Too calm. He stopped near Ethan's cell. Everything good? He asked. Ethan nodded. All good. Daniel watched him for a second longer. Then said, stay that way. Ethan gave a small smile. I plan to. The next day, everything changed. Morning count began as usual. Names called. Cells checked. Numbers matched. Until they didn't. Cell 214, Ethan Cole, no response. Daniel stepped forward fast. Open it. The door slid open. And there it was. The perfect bed. The empty space. No inmate. No sign of struggle. Just absence. Immediate lockdown followed. Doors slammed. Alarms rang. Officers moved fast. Daniel searched the cell. Behind the bed. Nothing. Under the sink. Nothing. But then he noticed something small. The back wall. Near the lower corner. A faint line. Too straight to be natural. He touched it. Pressed. And a small piece of stone shifted. Just slightly. His eyes widened. Because behind that wall, there was space. Hidden space. Old space. The kind built long ago and forgotten over time. The kind that should have stayed sealed forever. Daniel stood up quickly. Check the tunnels, he ordered. Officers moved. Fast. Because if Ethan Cole had found a way into those tunnels, then he had found a way into something much bigger. Something the prison had forgotten. And just as Daniel turned toward the stairwell, the radio crackled again. Movement confirmed below. Daniel grabbed the rail. And started down. Because somewhere beneath the prison, a man who should not be free was moving.